Still working out the timing of those intros, but nonetheless, welcome back everyone to another episode of East Got Game, where we give you the X's, the O's, and the insights of the NBL 1 East competition. Thanks for joining us tonight live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for the very first time. Hopefully that's in working order. Remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at East Got Game. Or you can continue to find our episodes on your preferred streaming platforms. On this week's episode, we will be covering our East Got Game Game of the Week, our top performances of the round in our East Got Game headlines for round 8, and we'll also be showing a recording of our very special guest interview for this week. But first, as ever, we better check in. Lockie France, how are you doing this week?
Sharkies got 2 wins. Doing pretty well.
They sure did. They sure did. And it looks like 2 very much needed wins. Am I right in saying that?
Very much so, especially given the celebration after the women won in overtime, which was the last minute and overtime were crazy. And yes, the men needed to get back on track after a couple of losses last week. And yes, a win against Hornsby, who are much better than their record suggests. Yes, much needed.
Yes, I certainly agree that both Hornsby teams, men's and women's, are a lot better and a lot more competitive than their record suggests. Last week, I was lucky enough to be a guest on the SA Shot Clock, a podcast created and hosted by our good friend Tristan Prentice, who's a play-by-play commentator in NBL 1 Central. And he asked me about some of those teams that probably perform better than their record suggests. And I also suggested that Penrith Panthers would be in that category too.
Definitely. And then they went off and their women got a win against Maitland of all teams. So proving you're right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Penrith. Thanks for sorting that out for me. I will also like to just preface that I did go to the dentist today, had to have a filling. They used a lot of anesthetic, and it was 4 hours ago, and it still hasn't worn off. So if anyone is perhaps watching thinking there's something wrong with my face, it's because part of it isn't working. But maybe all of this yapping today will exercise the muscle enough that the anesthetic can get metabolized a little bit quicker.
This is the second time this season we've been affected by someone having dental issues, because we started our episodes when we did because I had to go and get teeth out.
Yes, that's right. And yours was far more serious than mine, having your wisdom teeth out. Lesson learned, look after your teeth. Don't underestimate teeth. Teeth and eyes, the two expensive things that you got to look after.
Oh, tell me about it.
All right, so let's get stuck into it. It is well and truly the halfway mark in the NBL 1 East competition with round 8 done and dusted. Our main headline from the men's competition this week, Lockie, take it away.
Well, I think the main headline is, have the Newcastle men got it figured out? They got 2 wins on the weekend against Bankstown and Inner West. They're 5-6. They were good value for their wins, shot very well, over 50% for the weekend, kept the turnovers low, didn't give up many O boards. I think they only even had 7 turnovers in one of the games. So is it all coming together? You know, good spread of scorers. They had 5 players in double figures against Inner West, and then they had 4 in double figures against Bankstown. So the return of Leo O'Boyle from Switzerland might have been the last piece of the puzzle.
Well, yeah, like we put on our Instagram story, O'Boyle rules. And it looks like he's having an immediate impact if it's not on the stat sheet, certainly in the locker room in some positive way.
Yeah, well, he had 10 points in one game and 17 in the other, and it was 6 of 8 from 2-point range against Inner West. So I know Inner West have had their struggles, but that's still a very talented roster to go up against.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it looks like on NBL One East socials, approximately 8 hours ago, to be precise, Miles Cherry was quoted in saying, "Watch this space is all I will say. The pieces are starting to come together for the Falcons."
They certainly are. And you got to remember, they're 8th now. They're 8th. 5 and 6 gets you 8th spot now. So they're two wins off 7th, but they've only got to stay ahead of the teams they're ahead of now, and they're in finals.
And yeah, it is the halfway mark, as we said earlier. Obviously peaking, or should I say soaring at the right time, the Falcons. They do have North Bears at home next round, and the North Bears men's side have been a little bit up and down this season. And then round 10, the Falcons have Center of Excellence away. Then they have North Bears again, this time away, and Penrith away. So perhaps not entirely out of the woods just yet, but definitely a few games there that you could really chalk up as some wins.
Yeah, I mean, their back end probably does trend harder rather than easier. You know, they've also got Maitland, Sutherland, and Manly in a 3-week stretch before they finish it off with Central Coast and Hills. But as we keep saying about Newcastle, their first 3 wins were all against teams that we considered title contenders. So, I don't think they'll have the slightest worry about whether their schedule trends harder or easier, to be entirely honest with you.
That's right. And at the end of the day, if you want to make the top 8, if you want to win a championship, you have to beat everyone in one way or another. So whether it's title contenders or not, you have to chalk up a win regardless.
Very much so.
And in the women's competition, the signings just keep signing. There was the big news that Shyla Hill has joined the Bankstown Bruins and made her debut this week against Newcastle, which we'll talk about a little bit more in more depth a bit later. But also 2 homegrown talents are returning from college to join the undefeated North Bears roster in the women's competition. So Izzy Morgan has completed her time at college with Davison, and she's returning. And also Imogen Greensdale. We love to see them back, Lockie.
Oh, 100%. Under 20s, New South Wales legends from my 2 years going to Canberra. Meme era legends when I used to post Simpsons memes of all the under 20s players.
Do you remember your meme that you posted for Emmy?
Yeah, it was the Futurama guy with the really long arms that the professor created that could dunk from half court, just standing at half court.
Ah, yes. You did put that same one on your Instagram story the other day. Is that right? Yep. Love that.
Yes.
What about your meme for Izzy Morgan?
It was the scene from a Treehouse of Horror where with Goldilocks getting mauled by the 3 bears, and it was Beck Dallinger, Izzy Morgan, and Immy Greenslade. Because they're all bears.
Sorry, I wrote Greensdale. Oh no, I wrote Greensdale and got dyslexic and wrote Greensdale and not Greenslade. That's my bad. I can't even blame the anesthetic for that. That was just a poor slip up. But Izzy Greenslade is back. And tell us a little bit more about Izzy's college career. She's been at the one college for a little while, whereas Imogen has enjoyed a college career at 2 different colleges. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Izzy was at Davidson for all 4 years and just got better and better and better throughout her time. And she was already pretty good when she started. Immy started at Arizona State. Didn't get a lot of run there and also had some injury trouble. She has done her ACL. And then she finished up at Montana, which is not somewhere we see a whole lot of Aussies go. I think we have, not on the women's side anyway. On the men's side, I think that's where Josh Bannon went and probably some others. So Immy, she's 6'4", really long. That's why I posted the meme about the dude with the ridiculously long arms. It's just going to, provide a point of difference in the paint against a lot of teams. Just length, rim protection. Probably two sides that are going to be great for North's defense. I think we talked about Izzy Morgan we've all talked about Izzy Morgan before she even left for college as a great defender. When she was teamed up with Kate Seabom in that North's backcourt, was pretty much game over from the outset.
And there will be a period of time the North's women will be without Ruby Perkins because she was selected in the under-19 Aussie team that's going to the World Cup in July. You're replacing Ruby with Izzy, which is pretty sweet. But when you have Izzy Morgan, Ruby Perkins, Carla Pittman, Caitlin Martin, all defenders in your backcourt, a team's going to even be able to get the ball over halfway, or are we going to have to pass back to the 4 and let the 4 bring it up after the inbound?
You just won't get a minute off. That's the thing. It's not often that you can just rotate in great defender after great defender after great defender in the same positions.
Yeah, opposition's going to get worked. But yeah, that's going to be very, very exciting when they join. And also, similarly to Izzy Morgan finishing her time over at Davidson, Millie Pryor, who is a Manly junior, has also finished up. But a couple of sources have informed us that she won't be joining Manly for the NBL 1 East season. Had a couple of shoulder injuries, probably needs some time off from that. And I think she's still in America supporting Alex Tui as he pursues his NBA dreams.
So it seems like a reasonable course of action to take.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's literally a once in a lifetime opportunity. So best of luck to both of them. And just before we wrap up headlines tonight, we did have a question via our Instagram at eScottGame. So thank you very much to this person for your question. Very good question, actually. He says, hey guys, any chance you can have a discussion on the rules around restricted players and how BNSW compares to the point system some of the other states have in place? Pretty interesting how rosters like Bankstown managed to put a team together and still stay within the rules. And Illawarra men's team is also another good example of that, given that there's people like Todd Blanchfield from the NBL, Mims is an import, Den has played overseas, CJ Moran's represented Syria, so played at a national level, etc. So just before we get stuck into this, Lockie, can you give us a quick breakdown of what this is referring to in terms of building a roster, a point system that the other states have? Because there's maybe a few listeners out there, including myself, that aren't aware of that this is in place.
Okay, so in NBL 1 East, we're pretty cut and dry with our rules. We have two categories of two categories of restricted player. There's category A, which is your basic import players that aren't born in Australia or Asia Oceania. So those are just your straight up imports. You can have a maximum of 2 of those. And then if you have multiple players from Asia Oceania, only one of them doesn't count. So if you sign, so like in a West Women, they have 3 players from Asia Oceania. One of them is their specific Asian import. The other 2 then get transferred to the regular import spot, restricted spots, import spots. So then category B is your Australian citizens. So these are players that obviously aren't imports because they're Australian citizens, but if they've played for another national team, so CJ Moran playing for Syria, he is then considered restricted. If you played last season in the NBL 10 minutes per game or in the WNBL 14 minutes per game, you're also counted as restricted. That also, there's equivalent overseas leagues as well. The only problem is last year's NBL 1 East bylaws don't actually say which leagues count as equivalent. Other states do have a specific list. If you play in these X leagues, this is the same as if you played NBL for purposes of restricted players. Well, New South Wales doesn't have, they might have a list somewhere, but it's not in the bylaws. So if a player meets either of those, any of those criteria, they are then a restricted player as well. And you can have a total of 3 restricted players. So you could have 2 imports and someone who's played for another national team, 2 imports and an NBL player, 2 imports and a WNBL player. That counts as your 3. But then there's also special dispensation for homegrown players. So your Australian restricted players, if they have played 120 games for women or 150 games for men for their home association, or if they have played 6 junior seasons for their home association, or if they have only ever played for one association in Basketball New South Wales competition, then they're no longer restricted. So I would imagine Lauren Nicholson would not count as restricted for Sutherland because she's only, she's played so many games for Sutherland and only ever played for Sutherland. So that's basically how it works in East. Yes. So to the other states with their point systems, I managed to find Centrals and Norths. West is a bit like East. But yeah, so Central and North, they allocate players points based on what their experience is, what their level is. So if you've played in the NBA or you're an import, actually, let me tell you how many points you get. You get 32 points across your first 9 players, and then you get 1 additional point for every player up to 15. So essentially, your 6 last players are going to be your just standard locals. So yeah, in Central, if you're an import or played in the NBA in the last couple of years, you get 12 points. So if Josh Giddey decided he wanted to go play for Norwood instead of down at Frankston on a Tuesday night, he'd cost 12 points, even though he's Australian. If you've played in the NBL, so our rule around NBL, WNBL players being restricted, if you've done that, or if you've played in a World Cup qualifier or at the World Cup, you're worth 10. Same for your equivalent foreign leagues. And then it goes down. The fewer NBL minutes or WNBL minutes you play, you're worth 5 points or 3 points. Or if you played in a lower foreign league, you're worth 5 points. And then NBL benchies or DPs are worth 3, and then all your other locals are worth 1 point. And North is a bit similar. They're a bit easier on it. The max you can actually get is 10 points for an import or an NBA player. And they don't have the clause about national team players. So, CJ Moran's a great example here because he played 2 I don't know if he played World Cup qualifier games, but let's, for hypothetical sake, say he did. He would then be worth 10 points in South Australia for playing 2 games for Syria. But there's no national team clause in the North rules as far as I can find. So he would just be a local. So they also have homegrown special dispensation rules. I think they also have it for imports. If you sign as an import for 4 seasons in Central, you get a 50% cut in your points. So that'd be nice if you could keep. I think next year Sid Hunt would be Sid Hunter's 4th for Maitland if she came back. So in that situation, if we had the point system, she'd only cost 6 points instead of 12. So it gets difficult to put a squad together if you're stacking imports and can't get any special dispensation or point cuts. So that's basically the difference between things. Also, I like in North, your 1 point locals have to live within 120 kilometers of the association. So you do actually have to get proper locals to fill out your roster, which I think is 120 kilometers. Yeah, that's a reasonable, so if you're in Brisbane, you could get someone anywhere in Brisbane. But yeah, so that's pretty much the difference. So NBL 1 East, pretty much two rules and dispensation, Central and North, very, very different.
So with that 120K rule in North, that is essentially, so gone are the days where you could, sign someone like a Leilani Mitchell for a season and her, she signs with, say, Townsville, and then they just fly her in and out. Because that was a thing not too long ago. I think perhaps NBL 1 was officially implemented across the states, where they would sign these great local players that could just fly in and out for, say, a Thursday training, a Friday shoot around, a game on a Saturday, fly home Sunday.
Yeah,
so no longer the case.
No. So yeah, so if we refer this back to Illawarra's roster, I would say that in that situation, Lockie Dent would get a homegrown. I don't think he played in German Division 2, I'm pretty sure. So I don't think that would be an equivalent foreign league to NBL. But even so, I think he'd get a homegrown dispensation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, as we know, the Dent name is very strong at the Illawarra club, and I'm pretty confident he played at least 6 seasons as a junior at Illawarra. So that makes perfect sense. I can see a lot of great incentives in, say, the South, where they do have that strict point system, and their clubs there seems to be a lot more competitive clubs in close proximity, financially stable. So I can see how that point system is going to keep everything a bit fairer, where teams can't just buy championships, for lack of better phrasing. I do remember, though, the Keilor Thunder women's team last season having essentially a WNBL caliber roster. They had Maddie Rocci, Izzy Bourne, Tara Reid. I can't remember if Lily Rotuno was playing for them, but they were a really outstanding roster. So it would have been interesting to see how they worked their points. But I can also see the incentive for, say, West and East, who aren't always seen as the more competitive conferences compared to, say, North and South, how not having a point system but still having some rules around not having too much of a loaded roster can be an incentive for players to come out here.
And I mean, I think it gets good in Central and North for two very different reasons. In Central, it's a good system because every club is in Adelaide and you're probably within driving distance of the entire league. So, like you said, it doesn't take much to draw someone across to another club. And then in North, for the opposite reason, in that there's so many clubs in major regional centres that have got a lot of backing. So you need some kind of competitive balance there. But I think in East, I feel like if we had this point system, there'd be some players. I don't think we get all the homecoming signings we're getting this season.
No,
because
definitely not.
They're not all homegrown players. Like obviously, like Jason Kadee is, but they're not all moving back to their home clubs. Like Talia Tupaya isn't, Christina Moore at Inner West as well. They're not at their home clubs. And even like Carla Pittman and Caitlin Martin, they're not homegrown for Norths. So there's a lot of players who might be stymied, but in their movements and also in their movement across East and also moving into East. So I think it's playing out well enough this season. Like we had, I think in the men's comp last year, we had one team with one win and one team without a win. This year everyone's already got two. So, it's a reasonably competitive league. Up and down. I mean, it's in the men's comp, it's 7-3 for second and 4-7 for 13th. It's not a massive difference. And I mean, yeah, from 6th down to 13th in the women, and that's only going to change more with Bankstown women now. They've got it perfect. They've got 2 imports and their equivalent foreign league / WNBL player. Perfect. That's exactly the best. Yeah. With Rice, Redmond, and now Shyla Hill as well.
And lots of great homegrown talent around them.
Certainly do.
Yeah, very good. So very nice breakdown there, Lockie. And thank you to our loyal East Got Game listener for that. Such a fantastic question and reaching out to us on our Instagram. But remember, to anyone else out there, if you ever have a question that you would like us to consider discussing during an episode or news, gossip, anything like that you would like to bring to our attention, please feel free to message us, direct message us on Instagram at eScottGame. But yeah, that more or less wraps up the headlines of the round, I think.
Very nice. Yes, as one of my favorite YouTubers, City Nerd, says, viewer-suggested topics always welcome.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously, I mean, especially for me, I'm not on the ground there anymore. And as the boys say, getting amongst it as much as I used to. So there's definitely lots of things like that I miss. And I'll be the first to admit, the business side of basketball, when it comes to things like putting rosters together in a point system, in bylaws, in salary cap, I do not have that chip in my brain at all. And so I never kind of think of that side of NBL One East in terms of a sports administration, sports management perspective. So anything like that, I'm going to miss. So ask those kinds of questions if you need.
You don't play my franchise mode on 2K?
Mate, I don't even have a working TV, let alone ability to play 2K. My not very old TV, the box has just carked it recently. I don't have the finances to pay for it, so I have a giant screen here next to me as decoration. Yeah, I don't even have it. I don't even have a TV, let alone 2K. So no, geez. I do not play that mode in real life or otherwise. All right, let's get to our eScott game of the week for round 8. This week it was our turn to cover a game from the women's competition, and the one that was the most attractive was the Newcastle Falcons hosting the Bankstown Bruins more recently, or as we say, in round 8. This game ended up in Bankstown's favour. They managed to chalk up another win in Shyla Hill's first game back in the NBL One East competition, with a score being, as the page loads, 68-87 in favour of the Bruins. The likes of Shyla Hill having 29 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Juju Redmond, one of their imports from Bankstown, had 22, 5, and 5. And for the Newcastle Falcons, Nicole Munger had 16 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 assists. So 3 assists away from a lovely triple-double. And Sophie Brennan had 13 points and 2 rebounds. So they were the headlining statistics from individual players. Quarter by quarter, Newcastle Falcons won the first quarter 22-20. Lockie, as we get started, what were your immediate takeaways of this game, starting with the first quarter?
It was, Shyla came in and I knew it was always going to take a little bit of time for them to get fully used to each other, but the first 2 plays of the game, or 2 of the first plays of the game, suggested that it's going to come together. They got the win, but it was very quickly shown that they've got it together, because there were 2 plays for Shyla set a screen for her. She got to the cup. I think she ended up having Jefferson guarding her. She got straight pass, straight to the cup. And then very soon after, got her wide open, top of the arc 3. And I was like, all right, if everyone's happy to play their role, this is going to work very, very well for Bankstown. So I was very, very gratified to see that happen in the early stages. Speaking of 3, Sophie Brennan in the early stages. It's difficult. It's got to be difficult coming in as Newcastle. You probably, you would have heard the news, all the rumors swirling. You know what Shila's game is, but you still have to kind of prepare for a team that you haven't watched. And you know what Shila's going to bring, but it's how it all interacts with each other. And yeah, I think it felt like it took Newcastle a bit of time to get into the game. I know they took the lead into the second quarter, but I think that was a little bit some of those times where I guess the big 3, I guess we can call them, for Bankstown weren't entirely on the same page yet. There was one possession where Juju and Shyla just miscommunicated on defense, left Brennan wide open. There were a couple of times where Bankstown almost expected Shyla to just create something out of nothing, and they weren't really giving her many options. It's like, well, she can do it, but don't make her have to do it every time, kind of thing. But I think that was it for me, was watching Bankstown sort of come together, figure it out, not totally on the fly, but against a live opposition for the first time.
Yeah, I will say that while Shyla had a great stat line for this game, the 29 points, 13 rebounds, shooting at 55.56 overall, so at 10 from 18. She really had to work for those points. Newcastle's defense was outstanding. On-ball defense, pick and roll defense. The whole game, their rotation when they're after a scramble in their half-court defense, outstanding. So Shyla had to really, really work for those points. On the other side of that, I would say when you mentioned that Newcastle looked like they were taking a little bit of extra time to feel comfortable in the game, I don't think they were expecting Bankstown's defense to be equally as good. Bankstown's defense was really good this game. Oh my gosh. The first note I wrote for them was Tutani's defense on Munga. Very, very good. What a great matchup as well. She has a little bit more height, a little bit more length, can probably match Munga for strength, and her foot speed and anticipation I was so impressed with. Really, really great matchup, Tutani on Munga. Loved it. I don't think Newcastle were expecting that. I don't think they were expecting them to be able to match them in physicality and in strength and intensity on the defensive end. I think that rattled them quite early.
Yeah. Tutani all game. I mean, she did it at both ends, but that matchup, I don't know if that's like if Newcastle maybe expected, like Redmond to guard Munga or someone. But the fact that once Tutani proved that she could more than hold her own in the matchup, going forward, it opens up so many options for Bankstown as to who they want to choose to guard each opposition player. She was talking about the first quarter. You could talk about all 4.
Well, yeah, and then even who from Newcastle got to guard Shyla. You obviously could have Munga guard Shyla, Kate Kingham, Sophie Brennan, Giselle Havas guard Shyla. So they could have 4 people rotating on Shyla, all doing a great job being able to guard her. Like, what a luxury to have. And then Susi Walmsley as well. if she needed to be called upon, could probably throw a 2 cents in. Yeah. So the thing that caught my eye immediately from this game was how strong each team was on defense. And that was certainly the theme for the game. I don't think that good and bad, which we'll probably get into a bit later. But yeah, the defense for me from both ends is really, really impressive. And I don't think either team were able to score easily in the half court. The times when each team got scores was just momentary lapses in defense. Mostly for Bankstown, it was defensive transition. You know, Newcastle are always going to be skilled enough to run and want to run. So there was just a few momentary lapses during the game where Bankstown didn't have that great defensive transition, and Newcastle capitalized on that. Also, a couple of times, like you mentioned before, Bankstown didn't miss a couple of rotations, small miscommunications. It was only really here or there. Each team was just really, really good at exploiting it at the right time. And even for Bankstown, I'd noticed a lot. Jada Rice, you know, she is leading the league and perhaps the whole NBL 1E's competition in blocks. I'll have to go back and double check. She sags off a lot in the pick and roll, to the point where I'm like, she ain't even there. She's camping in the key. Pick and roll could be a high pick and roll, a step out of the 3-point line. She's camping in the key. Like, she's not helping, she's not hedging, she's not showing, she's waiting for that person to drive. But then Newcastle were able to come around that screen really easily. Open shot, you got Brennan, Munger coming off for that open shot. It was just not the day that Newcastle were able to make them.
Yeah, I mean, it probably speaks into one note that I wrote down was that at certain points, Bankstown just almost inviting a mid-range from Newcastle, it almost felt like. And whilst that's a very dangerous proposition because we've seen Nicole Munger's shot charts, she shot 5 of 19 from the field for the game. So, and I mean, they weren't all mid-range misses, but it's still probably the lowest value shot there is. So more power to them. If they're going to dare players to get 15, 16 feet from the basket and shoot and it doesn't go in, sometimes it's your day.
Yeah, just really didn't seem like Newcastle's day. But just on Munger's mid-range, I mean, she does like that mid-range jumper, especially from around the elbow or extended elbow area. And I do wonder sometimes in games like this where the defense is so physical and there's not a lot of, you don't get a lot of breathing space. Like, it's up in your face. It's very physical. It's very intense. Those very almost miraculous moments in those games where you do get an open shot. I wonder if that plays on your mind a little bit, where you're expecting someone to come and block you or bump you or something. You're not expecting to have such an easy open shot. Perhaps that kind of sense of panic plays into that, and that's why we start to miss a little bit more.
Yeah, I have to say, for a game that had 155 points scored in it, it didn't feel like it for most of the game.
No, and it honestly didn't feel like Shyla had 29 either, because it wasn't a 29 where everything was run for her. It wasn't like she was dribbling the air out of the ball every possession. Both teams still played to their strengths and played a very team-focused style of basketball at both ends of the court. And Leah, like you said, sometimes it's just your day. I mean, Shyla shooting an exceptional percentage, and other times it's not. And it really didn't seem like the Shyla show, despite the points. I think it was really a great win by the Bruins by committee.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no. I mean, Shyla is obviously going to take to the ball to the rack sometimes because she's very good at that. She's going to try and hit that step back throw because she's very good at that. But she did. I mean, Juju Redmond had 22, 5 and 5. She certainly had her opportunities and she took those as well. And I mean, we had a game last year where Shyla dropped 50 and Comets lost. So, you need support no matter how many points you can put up.
We've got a question here on Instagram Live from our good friends 2 Feet in da Paint. Question, haven't seen Giselle Havas play yet. How do you think she fits into the Newey system? So how do you think she fits into the Newcastle's overall system?
I mean, I have only watched, this was only I called her game for Newcastle against Sutherland, but she was, I think, fresh off the plane. I'm pretty sure it was her first game for the club, and she was fresh off the plane. Interestingly, she had 25 minutes in this one, so she's certainly taking on a bigger role. 7 points, 5 rebounds. She's someone who can just sort of plug and play in the backcourt almost. If you needed to bring the ball up, she can do that. She's more than happy to shoot it, and she went out and grabbed 5 rebounds despite being far from the tallest player on court. I think she's in a team, they've got Kingham, Brennan starting in the backcourt, and Waihape Andrews there as well. I think she's someone who can probably spell any one of those 3, given the situation. And I mean, that's probably why she's already getting the second most minutes off the bench, because she's someone who's already proven that she can slot in where required, which sometimes that's just all you need to be. You mentioned this to me earlier before we came on, that no Yamazaki in this game. So that was one backcourt member down. But yeah, I think Giselle Havas is just, a good all-round backcourt player who's a very welcome addition to the Newcastle Falcons lineup.
Yeah, I see her really suiting Newcastle's style of play, especially in the offensive end. It's quite apparent that they're all very well disciplined and committed and on the same page with what they're doing at any moment when they're on offense. They make very few errors. The times when there were turnovers was probably just because there were, the ball was stripped or may have dribbled off someone's foot in traffic. Let me just have a look at their turnovers, actually.
It was 10.
Only 10. 10's pretty good. And 3 from Munger and 3 from Brennan. I mean, that's also okay, given that the ball's going to be in their hands a lot. But yeah, I see, Newcastle's very particular instruction rules on offense suiting Havas, because she has adapted to it so quickly. And I also wonder that given she's just come from a great college career, like she played for Duke, that I imagine would have very structured and rigid systems, maybe it suits her, and it's probably not a big jump from what she's or what she's known. And having that extra height and length over some of the other guards, being able to have her in the backcourt when the likes of, say, Brennan or Kingham might need to be, if they're in foul trouble, if they're injured, if they have some other kind of defensive assignment, then I think Giselle's going to be a little bit more versatile, being able to guard, say, the 1 to the 3 or maybe even the 4. I can see her fitting in really nicely with Newcastle. Like you said, Lockie, she's already got great minutes. They're just such a loaded roster, aren't they? I mean, we'll talk about the fouls as well in a minute. But given that how many of the studs of this Newcastle team got into foul trouble, they still had so many talented people to call upon.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah Chicken, 11 and 9 off the bench.
So the first quarter, essentially 22-20, still quite an arm wrestle. The second quarter, very, very similar. Bankstown winning the second quarter, 18-19, but also one of those games where, quarters where pretty physical, not a lot of huge changes. I think by the second quarter, that's when I really noticed Jada Rice to be stepping off when she's guarding the pick and roll. I mean, there's drops and then there's, dropping back right into the key. and I think, and Newcastle had scoring opportunities because of that, about anywhere between 3 to 4 times in a row. Like Kingham hit a jumper at about 6 minutes 24 in the second quarter, where you can see that interplay. And then what I really liked from Bankstown in the second quarter, at 4 minutes 55, Juju, Redmond, and Tatani together play this two-man game in a little bit of a precarious spot on the court. It wasn't traditional 45. It wasn't kind of guard to guard at the top. It was somewhere in the middle. But basically, Tatani's gone and set a screen for Redmond. Didn't work. Set an immediate re-screen.
Yes.
And then just got this beautiful slip from that screen situation where Munger and Brennan switched the first one, didn't switch the second one. Tatani was open on the roll. Redmond gets it in there. It was so good that I had to watch it like 3 or 4.
I loved that play.
It was so good.
That one down as well. I feel like that was almost a turning point for Bankstown, that play, because the second quarter, it felt like Newcastle got it out to an 8-point lead, and I felt like that was where Bankstown it was probably their only one real lapse of more than a couple of possessions. And then almost that play, it kind of turned around, and that was when Bankstown really started going on a run and got it back within 2. And it was probably the first time that Newcastle really looked like they lapsed. Unfortunately, that kind of progressed further than Bankstown's did. So yeah, it was a quarter where both teams, were given opportunities by the opposition, and in the end, it all kind of ended up back at equilibrium at 40 to 39.
And on Instagram Live, the 2 feet into paint boys just say, thanks, friends. Making a North and Newey video tomorrow. Promise we won't totally copy your Havas homework, but very helpful. That's all good. But I did write a note here, going back to what I mentioned earlier about Havas being able to just slot into the offensive rules in particular that Newcastle seemed to have. Her timing of her cuts, or the timing of most of their cuts, but particularly Giselle's cuts in Newcastle. It's like I don't know if it's because they just have such a great playing history together in a short period of time, or if they're friends off the court. I don't know what the X factor is, or they've just all got high IQs, but their timing in some of their cuts sometimes is like they're telepathic. It just it just shows how simple rules done well can really be really, really hard to beat. I really like watching them because of that. But I should also mention, we just circling back on our mention of fouls. I will mention that by the end of the first quarter, Kate Kingham and Meg Jefferson had 2 fouls each. And by 6 minutes and 1 second in the second quarter, Hannah Chicken is on 2 fouls. And by 5 minutes in the second, Brennan's on to her second foul and then picks up a third at 3 minutes 49. And at 3 minutes 49 in the second quarter, this was also the Newcastle Falcons' 5th team foul, which also started to set a bit of a trend of the game that was already high intensity on defense and very physical. The foul trouble, Lockie. Oi!
Hey.
What a headache.
It really was, and it really disrupted the flow of the game as well. I think there were 46 fouls in the game in total. Yeah, 27 by Newcastle, 19 by Bankstown. And for a game that, wasn't close at the end and had teams fouling to stop the clock kind of thing, getting the foul count up, that is a lot of fouls. I mean, it harks back to the physicality, and you're trying to play really good, hard physical defense, but there's a lot of players on both sides that can play through it, that won't be remotely detracted by how physically you play defense, and they're good enough to draw the foul as well. It's just a pity we don't have a fouls drawn stat on the box score, because I would love to see how many fouls each player actually, drew from the opposition.
Because sometimes as well in NBL 1, not just in East, but everywhere, there's sometimes this attitude that particular NBL and WNBL players can be protected species, so to speak, like that they're always going to just attract more fouls or draw more fouls, whether they are fouls or not. But what I did like in this game is that when it came to the physicality, especially on the pick and rolls, I thought that was very well officiated. They let a lot of the physicality get played through. I think a lot of it was legal. If anyone needs evidence that women's basketball can be aggressive and physical, we've got plenty of pick and roll options just from this one game to show you how physical it can be, and all legal. And to be fair, they did a really, really good job of calling their illegal screens. So Jada Rice, I think, got called for 2 or 3 illegal screens from her 5 fouls in total for the game. And even if you go back and watch the replay of that particular segment to see what happened, definitely illegal screens. A little bit too late, not in great position, body turned in, that kind of stuff. So I thought the officiating around that was really, really good. And considering the pace of the game, that stuff's hard to keep up with. I think where it started to get haywire towards the end of the game is that there, like you said, probably too many fouls started to be called, so the flow of the game was disrupted. But then I think it started to get a little bit carried away, where it's like, oh, we called a foul for that thing that probably shouldn't have been called, but now we have to call it the other way, but then we're going to miss this one. Like it almost seemed like there's a little bit of over-analyzing happening with some of the fouls being called, because it was definitely a case in some way of like, okay, you called that one there, you've got to call it down the other end too.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you call something that you perhaps weren't calling before, and suddenly you've set a new standard.
Yes. Yeah, that is the more succinct way of what I was trying to explain.
Rather than going, oh, maybe shouldn't have called that one, you've kind of made a rod for your own back, because exactly the same thing happens down the other end.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where it got carried away a little bit, unfortunately. And big foul count, like you mentioned before. So Kingham and Brennan and Hannah Chicken all on 3 fouls for Newcastle. Claudia Wahape Andrews, Nicole Munger, Meg Jefferson all on 5 fouls and fouled off for Newcastle. So that's, their core rotation.
Yeah.
Other than, say, Giselle Havas have been restricted or taken or eliminated from the game. Meg Jefferson actually gets fouled off at 7 minutes 14 in the fourth quarter.
And that Munger got her 4th only like a minute after that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then the foul count on the Bankstown side, though, Tatani had 3, Shyla Hill had 3, Jada Rice was fouled off with 5, Kiana Davis-White had 3 as well. So a lot of their key players too getting caught up in it. And the free throw count, though, so Newcastle had 13 from 20. Bankstown, 25 from 32 free throws. Oy.
Shyla a perfect 8 of 8. Jada Rice 4 of 4. Juju Redmond 5 of 7. So, they're getting their stars to the free throw line, and they're converting 17 of 19 at the line between their 3 big names. So, lesson for the future.
Well, yeah. You know how much I love to harp about how important free throws are, but this game in particular, where each team were really having to earn their points in any other way of the game. Nothing came easy for either team. Even more important that you need to make your free throws, because
definitely.
20. Wait, what did I say? It was
25 of 32.
25 of Bankstown's points. So more than a quarter of their points came from the free throw line, and they win by 9.
19.
19?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Can't math. Can't math. Can't math, can't spell, can't read. 19. Yes, so 25 points, winning by 19. Yeah, make your free throws, seriously. Because, yeah, if you're not going to get a layup easy, you're not going to make your 2-foot jumpers easy, you need to be making those layups. Those free throws. Definitely need to be making those free throws.
Certainly do.
But, yeah, in the third quarter, this is when Bankstown, essentially started to tear away a little bit. Like, I shouldn't say tear away. They chipped away. They started to consistently chip away. They won the third quarter 14-24, and Bankstown also won the fourth quarter 14-24. And this is, I feel like, especially in the third quarter, is when a lot of the main themes for this game kind of came apparent for me. We've spoken a lot about the defense from each team in this game. How shots aren't coming easy. And essentially what it came down to for me, and this is going to sound very simple and very silly at the same time, Bankstown just scored more, put more shots in than Newcastle. Because pound for pound, play for play, a lot of things were very, very equal, except for the outcome. Newcastle were just missing more shots. Bankstown were just making more. And that's literally all you have to do to win.
And I think two notes I made that really encapsulate the putting the ball in the basket more was, the first is that Nicole Munger didn't make a shot after the 7:36 play mark in the third quarter.
Yeah.
The second speaks to shot selection, and it's Sophie Brennan driving. Well, she doesn't even get into the paint before putting up a floater from about 18 feet.
Was that because of the shot clock running out, though?
But she took her time getting there, is the thing. It was just like, yeah. And I think it was a bit of the shot clock, but she hit 3 threes at the time. It was just one of those things that, even if it's shot clock, it's still, the offense. Not, 100% there. And I think the frustration kind of started to show on Munger, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's going to happen to, I'm going to say even the best, but she is literally the best in the league. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I do. We'll give her credit, though. You could tell she was getting frustrated with a couple of things, but she doesn't resort to whinging and yelling and stuff. Like, sometimes she'll get, at the end of the game, she was kind of getting a little bit animated with some of the fouls called, but that's normal. Everyone does it. Instead, what she does when she's frustrated, she plays harder. She'll defend harder. She'll chase more rebounds. She'll start to show that desperation and do whatever it takes to try and get the momentum back in her team's favor, or to try and get more scores. And that's a great leadership quality too, because if that's coming from your best player, you're just going to see that and be like, yeah, I need to go do the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, third quarter for me, honestly, Jada Rice got her third foul quite early in the third quarter after halftime. And even though you mentioned that Charlotte hit the 3 in the first quarter, they counted that as a long 2.
Oh, did they? That would explain the maths. Yes, because she only had 1 3 for the night, and it was that step back when they switched Jefferson.
Yeah, so her first 3 was actually only 8 minutes and 1 second in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then it was a good few minutes of scrappy play by both teams, and then the drought.
You wrote scrappy as well.
Yeah, it got really scrappy there in the third.
Yeah.
It was very rushed, panicked. Nothing was organized. It was physical. There was one stage where thought to myself, there are so many bodies on the floor, and even the commentator was just like, "Oh, it's a lot of bodies on the floor." Someone just needed to call a timeout, or something needed to break, because it was getting wild.
Yeah, but what I also noticed was that Jada Rice and Juju Redmond were good at making things kind of happen out of a broken play. there were a couple of plays in the third quarter where a ball was tipped or, something happened and things weren't quite working. And I think there was especially one, like that little shuffle step on the dribble that Juju has, that she used it on a few of her left wing threes to get in position. It really creates separation. And I really like it. Like she's got a teammate whose step back three is world famous, but Juju, I like that little move she's got to kind of get her three ball open. It almost looks like part of her shooting motion at times.
Yeah, so I think it was Juju Redmond who broke that drought in that real scrappy couple of minutes there. She hit this right-hand layup over like 4 people. I had to watch another thing. I had to watch a few times. And like, wait, how did this? She got past Hannah, or maybe she got past Havas, I think. And then Chicken kind of half committed to help, and other people kind of half committed. And she just ended up being loosely surrounded by 4 people and just kind of went all over them all and made this great layup from like the block. And then the momentum really started to pick up for Bankstown. Rachel Dunlop comes from the weak side with this huge block at 4 minutes, 56 seconds. Bankstown go down the other end, and that turns into a 3-pointer for Juju Redmond as well. So I think the timing of Redmond's scores were really important in this game. I really like how Redmond and Rice, 2 imports who could probably, like, they're not kind of like taking over. They're getting the ball in great scoring positions. They're taking their scoring opportunities when it comes to them. They're not forcing anything. They're very good at both what they do. Love Jada Rice's back to the basket post moves. Textbook, beautiful finishes. But yeah, that's when the momentum really started to hit. And then Tutani hit that 3-pointer in the corner off another Newcastle turnover to get Bankstown up by 8. And that is when they were rolling.
Yeah. And back to Tutani. Honestly, and that's because Rice and Redmond and Heel aren't trying to take over the game. That is what allows players like Tutani they trust her, and she repays that trust. And if they were trying to take over too much, it would just be 3 players with 25 points, and maybe they don't win. There's, no matter how big your big 3 is, there's still 5 on the court, and how you can utilize them is half the battle.
Yeah. So that was when the momentum chipping away, definitely in Bruins' favor. I think at the same time, in this point of the game for Newcastle, like I mentioned, Meg Jefferson got her 3rd foul to open the 3rd quarter. But then, her and Munga had that really nice transition basket where just a really nice pick and roll. Jefferson straight down the middle. Yeah. Munga just throws a dime. Then Meg got a steal, goes for coast to coast, gets fouled. So that, Newcastle was still showing lots of positive signs. They just couldn't put the ball in the hole. But Brennan gets a steal at 3 minutes 57, trying to keep Newey in touch and breaking some of that Bankstown momentum. But then, Meg gets a 4th foul with 2 minutes and 27 to play. And Newcastle continue just to make a lot of great plays, great decisions, and getting some open shots, just kept missing.
Yeah.
Someone had cursed that ring for them in the 3rd quarter. But yeah, then rolling into the 4th, as we mentioned, Meg Jefferson fouled off at 7 minutes 14. Munga actually got her 4th foul at 8 minutes 46, even before that.
Even before that. So, yeah, playing with both of them on 4. Yeah, I mean, just going back to the 3rd, Newcastle, 23% from 2-point range, 1 of 9 from 3-point range. Bankstown, 37.5% from 2-point range and 50% from 3.
Yeah, literally Bankstown just making more shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that.
And it wasn't
quarter,
much. I mean,
yeah.
it wasn't as massively. A discrepancy wasn't that massive in the fourth, but it still flung heavily Bankstown's way.
Yeah, and just on that 3-point percentage as well, not the greatest for both teams. Newcastle were 5 from 24, which was 20.83% for the whole game. And Bankstown, 6 from 23, 26.09% all game. So yeah, not ideal shooting from either team. It is tricky on those rings as well. Sometimes they can be unforgiving, those rings in Newcastle.
I say that about the Sutherland rings, but Lauren Nicholson was down at Sutherland Basketball Stadium on Saturday morning while we were setting up. I'm not saying anything about the rings anymore. It's clearly not the rings.
Yeah,
she couldn't miss.
Oh, jeez. Looks like she hasn't missed a beat. Had a baby, ready to get back into it.
I hope so.
Fourth quarter, not a great start for Newcastle. Both Jefferson and Munga on fourth fouls very early. When Meg Jefferson gets fouled off at 7 minutes 14, at this stage of the game, the Bruins are now up by 14.
Yeah.
And essentially for me at that point, the rest of the fourth quarter was very similar to how the third quarter played out. Physicality continued, lots of fouls getting called more and more against Newcastle. And then Bankstown again, really just making more shots than Newcastle. That's kind of what, other than the fouls, as we mentioned, and the number of free throws taken, just made more shots. I think the percentages in the fourth quarter for Bankstown was 45.45 from the 2-point range, 37.5 from the 3-point range. So consistently a really good percentage from the 2-point range for Bankstown and just happened to capitalize from the 3-point range in the second half.
Yeah, the main difference for me between the third and fourth quarters is just that as it wore on, the fourth quarter wore on, and, play it, Meg fouled out, Nicole got her fourth, it just felt less and less like Newcastle were likely to get anything out of any one individual play. It felt like Plan A was less likely to work due to the Bankstown defense as the game wore on. And I guess that partially comes from who the first player fouled out was, which was Meg, who is someone who can go toe-to-toe with Rice in the paint. So I think that, who fouled out first was probably a big part of things.
Yeah, I agree. So, and that was essentially the game. It didn't feel like a 19-point win.
No.
19 points on paper, you're like, oh, that's a bit of not a flogging, but, it's a very healthy win.
Yeah.
It was certainly a win done by committee, a win done by chipping away, taking their opportunities, capitalizing on those small but important opportunities in the third and the fourth. And Newcastle just had a lot of struggles with a lot of fouls and things like that too. So, both teams really good on D. Newcastle done it. Yeah, all the other notes I have I've already spoken about essentially. It was one of those games. I'm starting to notice more and more. We do these game reviews. The games that I find the most interesting, or the ones that have a lot more to talk about, are always the games where I'm going back and re-watching certain plays over and over and over. And I'll watch a play, focus on the offense first. I'm like, okay, what was it? Go back and watch the defense again and go back and watch it. They're the most interesting games to me. Like when we did the COE Hornsby men's game a few rounds ago, same thing. I had to watch things over and over and over just because there's so much detail to it. And sometimes to me, that is the sign of a really good game.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same with the fourth quarter of Illawarra women against Sutherland. Mainly what Illawarra were doing, I will admit. But that I could probably go back and break down even further. Some of those plays.
Yeah, especially helps when you were there, I guess.
No, it did not help. I did not like being at that game. That's not true. Any game where I get to watch Ella Dent ball out is a good game.
That's a good game. But yeah, so basically my final thoughts were just great D from both teams. Both teams able to exploit the momentary lapses in their opposition's defense. Bankstown just put the ball in the hole more than Newcastle. If I'm going to make it a very generalized summary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think physicality, defense, as I said earlier, didn't feel like a game where 150 odd points were scored. I think the one thing you can take out of it is that, this was probably the perfect game for Bankstown to have up first. If they lose Shiloh's first game and it's not a blowout, if it was reasonably close, you could just say, they'll be fine. They just got to get Shiloh into the mix. Instead, they've gone out and in a game that they probably wouldn't have been favoured in before, maybe not even completely favoured in with their current roster. They've come out, got a win, put that on the board. They've got to come back from 3. They were 2-8, so they've got to keep winning. They've got a lot of winnable games coming up, and they've just added an extra. It was, there was not a lot to lose here and a lot to gain, and they gained a lot.
Yeah, and gave Newcastle their first loss of the season. So their undefeated streak is, as they say in Kath and Kim, OVAH. Over. But Bankstown, they have a lot of winnable games coming up in their next couple of rounds. They are playing a doubleheader away in round 9, starting with Penrith Panthers on the 30th of May. So that's the Friday night. Yes.
Well, I hope it is, because I'm meant to be commentating the next day, so I hope that's the Saturday.
Yeah, I was like, I'm commentating the Saturday too, and I'm pretty sure that's the 31st, where you'll be at Sydney Comets commentating the Bankstown Bruins.
I will be.
And then round 10, they've got Illawarra away. And in round 12, they've got Hills and Maitland. So of those 5 games, I reckon Bankstown on their best day, they're winning at least 4 of those 5 games.
Honestly, they've got Maitland and Manly, I think, are the only 2 top 8 teams. I'd have to check the exact table as it stands, but I think Maitland, Manly, and Comets are their only 3 games against current top 8 teams to come.
Yeah, and they play Penrith in round 9 and in round 13.
Oh, so there's a team they can hang 2 losses on and really break it open.
And just a side note, I had someone ask, someone just made the comment how they were surprised that Shiloh signed with Bankstown. And my educated guess, is that she has been coached by Lauren Curtin before.
I think that was the quote actually that was on a post. That she was
there you go.
The jury join up with Coach Curtin again.
Yeah, I think when Shiloh, first started playing for New South Wales Metro all those years ago, and when she started playing for Sutherland as a junior, made a good relationship with Lauren. So, great job recruiting Lauren, and just shows that those relationships always, come in handy, and certainly the missing piece of this Bankstown puzzle. So, yeah, really, really excited now to see the back end of their season just continue to improve, because they're currently, making sure I look at the right ladder, they are currently 13th with 3-8. So that could very quickly become 7-8 in the next 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Um,
The old Super Smash Brothers, a new challenger approaching.
A new challenger
New-
approaching.
As in Bankstown.
Yeah.
For the chip.
Yeah. Who dis?
Yeah.
Newcastle, on the other hand, they now have North's next
Mm.
round, which is probably my highly most anticipated game in the women's competition, perhaps so far of the season.
No, but isn't that what I said? That you don't want to be Mike Tyson facing Buster Douglas, and you asked me who Buster Douglas was?
Yes, I did.
And that's exactly what happened. Bankstown went out and blew up the undefeated battle.
Yes, they did. They sure did. Sending shockwaves through the league, which we love. So yeah, Newcastle next round now have North Bears. Then they have the COE away. Then they have North Bears again in round 11 with a doubleheader away to with Penrith as well. And then they've got Manly in round 12 and Sutherland in round 13. So really, that's a hard road. That's a hard road to the rest of the regular season for Newcastle.
It is, but they've banked so many wins already that I mean, it is tough, but I mean they can go out and win any and all of them. So
yeah. And it's you can also see it as great preparation for the finals.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was our EGG game of the week. Now it's time for our guest interview for this week. And as we're probably picking up during the season, now that we've gone live on a Tuesday night, lots of teams are probably at practice while we are going live, which is understandable. So we were lucky enough to record an interview with our special guest this week, which we'll be playing now. So let's put that up and enjoy. Time now for our very special guest interview. Our guest this week is someone who is no stranger to playing in the East. They are a Newcastle native who was instrumental
fantastic coaching the whole way through, from my club teams to my rep teams. And that's not something that everyone is blessed to get. So yeah, just really lucky.
Who was your first rep coach? I mean, having Perscock Sedge come to your school and pretty much recruit you is already a good start. Who was your first rep coach? Is it anyone that's still involved in the club now?
The very first ones, I can't remember exactly, but my club coach was Rod Kleeman, who was also my under 14s coach, and we went on to nationals and that kind of thing. So yeah, he was kind of instrumental in that first bit of getting into the game and building confidence when I was a kid.
My gosh, also the iconic coach of the Newcastle boys high school team back in my day when they would like be making a long run at all the CHS championships. That's a throwback I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and we were really lucky. Like, he would run the same drills as he would run with them and be like, they're hitting this number, and they were all with the under 18s Newcastle team, and we were like, we're going to beat it, but we probably didn't. But we had fun trying to do it.
Yeah, bit of an unfair comparison, but it obviously helped with the motivation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you and Sophie played New South Wales Country together in 18s?
We did, yeah. I was lucky enough to make the team when I was bottom age 18s. So we played kind of every off year together in rep for Newcastle, but then I made the state team, the New South Wales Country team, bottom age. So we got to play together in that tournament, which was really cool to see. We had some really amazing players in Newcastle, and I mean, the pathway's still really great there, but growing up, Katie Ray Adzuri, Sophie Kleeman, there were so many players coming through, and yeah, it was just a really great place to train. And at training, we were always coming up against really, really talented athletes. So it was really good to go up against each other, and it was probably the strength of our rep team and getting to go up against those players week in, week out that kind of allowed me to develop my skills enough to be able to make that team.
And I mean, once after playing New South Wales Country's 18s, you went off to junior college at Western Wyoming.
I did. It was.
How does a Newcastle beach lover end up in Western Wyoming?
I had been speaking to a couple of schools, and at that point, not many players were going over to college. It's not the pathways weren't really the same as they were now, but at the time I was like, I'm only going if I get a Division 1 scholarship, and that kind of, I had that attitude. But then a coach kind of knew a coach, and Ken Schwartz, the coach there at Western Wyoming, reached out to me, and just the things he had to say just really aligned with the values that I had. And we set up a Skype call with some of the players on the team, and I just felt it within myself that was the right place to go, and I had the best experience there. I was really lucky. Just met some amazing people, and was kind of starting from the moment that I got there. And so was able to develop my skills, both at training, but in the games. And during that time, I just got a lot better. And in Wyoming, not many people know where Wyoming is, but it's a really cool place, but it also gets really, really cold. And so in the middle of winter, you can't really go outside, so you're just training. So there was a lot of time there that I spent in the gym, and I got a lot better being there.
Yeah, can confirm it gets cold in Wyoming. I went there one late October to watch my friends play soccer. Yes, had to borrow someone's winter jacket.
Yes, and we're very lucky basketball is an indoor sport.
Yes. But then you moved on to Hawaii Pacific, which nowadays, every time you turn around, someone's from Australia is going to Hawaii Pacific. Was it like that back then?
It wasn't, actually. When I went to Hawaii Pacific, there was one other girl who had been there, an Australian that had been there a couple of years before me. But when I went there, I was the only Australian girl on the team, and it was a big change from being in Wyoming, that's for sure. But I'm a beach girl growing up in Newcastle, so it was such a great place to be. My team was great. I had really great coaches. And from that point on, my coach kind of developed a pipeline and started bringing more and more Aussies in. So as the years passed while I was there, they kind of brought more and more in, which was really cool.
So did you actually get to play with any other Aussies later on in your HBU career?
I did, yeah. My senior year, I played with Eva Nodge, Botti Nodge's daughter. She was a really talented shooter. And it was really cool to have her on the team as well. I lived with her and I lived with a few other girls. But yeah, it was really cool to have another Aussie there, definitely.
And your college profile says that your favorite athlete's Kelly Slater and your favorite singer is Jack Johnson. So can I assume you spent a lot of time around the beach while you were at HBU?
did. I reckon that might have changed a little bit now. But I mean, can confirm Kelly is a fantastic athlete. I don't think many people would think otherwise. I don't know if he's my favorite athlete now. But yeah, I spent being in Hawaii with the island lifestyle, I think it did influence a lot of my choices back then.
And
yep.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say you're up next.
Yes, I am up next. So as Gwyn mentioned, you were grand final MVP in 2016, winning that Waratah League championship. And then you moved on to the Sydney Uni Flames. So did that just come about from your play in Waratah League, or did you have open tryouts, or how did the spot with the Flames come about?
Yeah, it was. I think it was very much from that game. We won the championship that year, which was really cool to do it after going to college and then coming back. We probably may not have had the best team on paper, but it was just a great team to be a part of. And following that game, I got a call to go down a couple of days later to Sydney to do some open tryouts with the Flames. And then in that next few weeks, it was a little bit of a whirlwind, and then got offered a development player contract for that next season coming up. And I think in that same breath, like, it was not something that I had ever pictured for myself. Going to college, I knew that I wanted to play basketball and I loved basketball, but at the same time, it was a pathway for me to get an education paid for, and I would use that education to then do something in my career that was not being a professional athlete. Now, during that time, I worked full-time as well as playing full-time, but at the same time, I didn't think that was going to be something. So it was a really cool experience to get that opportunity.
And I mean, that Flames roster, I mean, that was Leilani, Snelly, Asia Taylor, Jen Hampson. How did your development, how much do you take out of training alongside and playing alongside players like that?
Oh, huge amount. When I would guard Leilani most training sessions, and just to be coming up against someone of her caliber day in and day out, you get better no matter what. And then they say a few things to you to help your development and assist you. I was so lucky in that time, and Snelly, she took me under her wing a bit as well. And yeah, just so lucky to have those girls. But then we had the young ones coming up. Allie Wilson is absolutely flying now. She's doing such amazing things. And she was young in that team. And Talia Tapia, who, I mean, at that point had been around for a long time, but was still a baby in the league. There was just so many athletes that you could learn so much from, and being able to train every day with them I was able to get a lot better as a player.
Yes.
Funny how you talk about how long Talia's been around, because I still remember it was about her 3rd season in the league. And someone, instead of giving her a bottle of wine at the end of season awards, they gave her a bottle of Coke because she wasn't actually old enough to drink and she'd already been in the league for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like so talented. And it's so great to see her back in the league as well.
But a lot of names there you mentioned that you played with the Flames and won a championship with the Flames that you get to guard again now that you're back in East, with Leilani playing for the Crusaders and Talia playing for Inner West. It's a little bit of a reunion.
It is, and it's so great to see the East is kind of going from strength to strength. There's been so many signings this year, both imports but local players coming back to play in the East, and it's really cool to see. New South Wales has produced so many fantastic athletes, both in the women's and the men's side, and to see the East just getting stronger and stronger as the years go on is really great.
And we definitely want to talk more. Sorry, you go, Locke.
I think that's something Newcastle's always been good at, is having a really strong local core. I mean, obviously you get imports like Nicole, or like EJ or Leo on the men's side, but just having that local core just really sets you up to, you only have to add a couple of pieces and you're on your way.
Yeah, definitely. And we, as I started, we have some amazing coaches here and some really great pathways here in Newcastle. And so there's so many talented athletes that are coming through and continue to come through. Some of our junior players now in 18s that are in our squad are so talented and in state teams. And we just continue to develop really good players here in Newcastle. And it's so great when people either stay here and continue to play through or go off to college and come back and want to represent Newcastle, because it is such a great place to play, and it is a great culture here. We have so many amazing supporters, and you just go to a Newcastle game and the stands are full and the atmosphere is unreal. Like, there's not many places that I've played that match the atmosphere of a home court and a home game in Newcastle.
I was delighted to see in your recent game against the Bankstown Bruins that Agnes Derricott has still got a prime location in the grandstand in a box seat. I'm glad she's being very well looked after.
Yep, she's definitely there at the games. And I mean, I've had Agnes as a manager from when I was in under 12 to state teams, and she has been around. So it's awesome to see so many familiar faces still in the crowd when we play at home.
I think we could probably do a survey of current NBL 1 East players and see how many people have had Agnes as a manager at some point in their career, because I don't think there'd be a lot. Even coming to mind just randomly, Lachlan Dent, that's now suiting up for the Illawarra Hawks. Yeah, he definitely had Agnes as a manager, and that was the same year he was 18s, and I think so like Luke Cassidy from the Crusaders and that age group all had Agnes as a manager. So that's already that would be a bunch of players already.
Absolutely. We'd have most associations covered, especially the country ones, that's for sure.
Yeah. Country tour ticking off a lot of names. But I definitely want to get into later on about your return to Newcastle and perhaps comparing the NBL 1 North to East a little bit later. But in the meantime, you did, as you mentioned earlier, you did move to Queensland and haven't played here in the East since 2016 and played on and off here in Brisbane, I think mostly in the Gold Coast. Is that right? Yeah,
it was in the Gold Coast. So after I was kind of in the meantime while I was playing for the Flames, I played in Seabull with the Sydney Uni Sparks, which was a short but amazing couple of years. Out of that team, so many of my friends, we still see each other. And I was just on the phone to Shanae Greaves, who played WNBL and played with me with the Flames and with the Sparks She's one of my best friends. So a lot of us have stayed in contact, which is really cool. But after that time with the Flames and Sparks, I went up north to Queensland, just needed a little break. And I had planned to just go up there for one season, play for Gold Coast, and ended up loving it up there. We did really well, actually came runners up in that first year. And again, not probably the best team on paper, but we just really played together well, and it was a really cool experience, and ended up getting a job for the Brisbane Bullets and stayed up there for 5 years. So it was a long time.
And yeah, the Gold Coast Rollers, so were you with the Rollers when it changed from like QSL to NBL 1 North?
Yeah, so the COVID year, I actually tore my ACL. So I rehabbed. So I played for 2 years there and loved it. And then I tore my ACL. And so I rehabbed kind of through that COVID year. And then into the next season, I did a bit of coaching, actually. So I assistant coached with the Rollers, which was cool to be on the other side, although I just wanted to be back out there. And then kind of pushed myself to get back out onto the court, and played 1 year with the Rollers and then 1 year with the Southern District Spartans in the NBL 1.
Was there much of a change, did you notice at that time when everything went from QSL to NBL 1 North? Was there much of a difference in leagues when it changed, or do you feel like it took a little bit of time to perhaps develop into what NBL 1 North is now?
Yeah, I think it took a little bit of time, but there was also a lot more, probably where you saw the biggest difference was around, I guess, the social media and the media and the following of the league. Definitely having that injection from the NBL and the resourcing around that, you could definitely tell the difference with all the games being live streamed and so much more media content. And I guess working in the media space, I was kind of across all of that as well. And so that was definitely the biggest change. Now, clubs probably had a little bit more money, or were putting more money into the programs and trying to get better players into the league. So there was a really strong league. But at the same time, that QSL league beforehand, there were some pretty good players coming up and playing in their kind of NBL or WNBL off season as well. So yeah, that biggest difference was probably more in the media space.
So yeah, you did mention before you got a job with the Brisbane Bullets, and you were working in media while you were up here in Queensland. So probably a good segue to talk a little bit more about what your role was with the Brisbane Bullets while you were here.
Yeah, so I was the media and marketing manager at the Bullets, and it was a really good space to be in, because I kind of knew a lot of the players, or knew of a lot of the players, and could talk basketball and could write about basketball, and also just loved kind of building relationships and being able to speak to media about different things. So yeah, it was a really great way to kind of merge my passions, which was kind of media writing and that communication side with basketball itself. So yeah, I was really lucky to have that opportunity, and I worked for the Bullets over 2 different periods, so kind of pre and post COVID, but that second time I was there for 3 years in that media and marketing manager role. And just the people you were able to meet and the opportunities that I had to work, I was really lucky and very grateful for the experience.
Have you got any kind of highlights at the forefront of your mind from when you were in that role, like a funny moment or a kind of like a once in a lifetime kind of moment?
There were a few different moments when we had kind of NFL Hall of Famers, just forgetting his name, but like sign on with the ownership group. So working with his media people, or just different moments. interviewing Nathan Sobey after he came back from the Olympics about his experience there. I think the biggest part was kind of being able to tell the stories. Jason Kadee, when he played his 300th or 350th NBL game, and talking to him about that experience, and I guess growing up alongside of him, and going to all those tap camps and, NIT CP, or, all of those camps growing up, and then just seeing, I guess, their careers come to life was, really cool.
God, it would have been such a strength for you in that role. Like, I bet you when you applied, the Bullets were just like so happy that you applied, because I think being a former, like being a pro basketballer and then going into that role in basketball just would have been such an asset to the club, because you have that lived experience and better understanding of when you're having to interview players and ask them to do particular, I guess, media spots or things like that go off the court too.
Yeah, I think it was really beneficial, and knowing kind of when to ask for things or when to kind of leave things, or, that was probably a strength, working with the players. I was probably a bit too soft on them at times. But that was okay. It was good for probably the relationship, and, getting to know, like, be able to get their personalities to come across over media is tricky. And you doing this podcast, you'd probably understand that sometimes you're doing interviews and it's hard to kind of get people's personalities to come out when there's a camera there. Oftentimes you're talking to someone and their personality is so bright and they have this way about them, and then the camera comes and, people kind of go into their shells a little bit. So I think that was probably if you talk about highlights, that's probably the biggest thing, is just seeing the growth of certain athletes over the time, and getting them to a place where they're in, in-game interviews and their personalities really shining. And that's a really cool thing to be able to help them with in their career.
And just putting your experience with the Sparks together and your media and comms experience together, because you also played that at the Sparks with Meg Jeffs and Emily Simons, right? And now they also work in media and comms as well. Like, they did some really great work with a lot of FIBA events held in Sydney over the years. I mean, can we start manifesting some kind of businesswoman Sparks reunion now, and this women in sports media conglomerate between you three, or is that a little bit too optimistic?
We have spoken about it over dinners. I do see them. Awesome. I'm close with them, and I see them also quite often. And we have spoken about it before, but Emily's doing amazing things right now, and she's kind of working with the agency, with the NBL and the WNBL, and Meg's working on Vivid at the moment. So they're both doing amazing things. So maybe in the future that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sign us up. Any way we can help.
Thank you.
And now, you are back home in Newcastle, as we mentioned. So what brought you back home?
Family. Honestly, I am really close with my family, and they are the most supportive, amazing people. And I have come home every chance I can get, but when you're living in a different state or a different place, you don't get to see them as much as you want to. And I have nieces and nephews who are now in high school and primary school, and you just miss all the little things. And so I just got to a point where I was ready to come home, and I'm so grateful for the time now that I'm spending with my family. So yes, that was the big pull. I was just ready to come home. And I think talking to people, Newcastle does that. A lot of people kind of go away and get the pull to come back to Newcastle.
Yeah, and why not? You've certainly come back at a terrific time, not just to be a part of the club in your new role in media marketing and comms, but also to be part of this loaded roster of reigning champions. What has Coach Bultitude asked you to focus on as an individual to bring to this team this season, and how do you see your role in this team?
I think it's still weird for me to say because I still feel quite young, but I am a veteran, very much so, on this team. So I think that just bringing that experience, and we do have some unbelievable players on the team, but we do have a lot of young girls as well. So I think being that veteran presence and bringing my experience is helpful for the group. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is more the off-court stuff. But on court, I mean, they tell me to shoot the ball, so I probably don't do it very, very often. But we have some amazing players on the team, so I'll just kind of play my role and try and get a few stops and do whatever I can to help us win.
And have you noticed very many differences playing between NBL 1 North and NBL 1 East? I mean, you said before yourself that NBL 1 East is going strength to strength. But yeah, now that you're back in East, does it compare to the level of competitiveness and talent in North?
Yeah, I really think it does. And probably in a couple of years back, maybe the depth wasn't there, but you're seeing the teams kind of reload now, and there are so many young talented juniors, and you just look at a team look at a Newcastle team right now, and we do have Nicole in, and we have a couple of girls that have come in from Canberra or Sydney, but at the same time there is that local core as well. So there are a lot of talented athletes coming through. You look at the Norths and the Manleys, and their cores are also kind of a local core, but they've been together over a few years now, and each team is kind of building and building. And so I think where that depth was maybe lacking a little bit a few years ago is really just growing and growing. And I think there's a lot of parity there now.
Yeah, one of Lockie's favourites is Sophie Brennan, who's also a young homegrown talent, and she had another great game on the weekend against Bankstown.
She's playing so well, Sophie, and shooting the ball unbelievably. And she's from Canberra, and is like, it's so great to see her come down here and just grow in confidence from game to game, and we're just lucky we have her on our side.
Lockie, do you want to ask the last couple?
I'll ask. Yes, I can certainly do that. Actually added a couple of sub questions to our bookending question, but we end every interview or conversation with the question: who is Susi Walmsley off the court?
Off the court, that's a very hard question. Off the court, I love spending time with my family. I'm a bit of a homebody, although I love being at the beach. I read a lot. I love to be around my friends, and I love to be around my family, and that, I guess, is filling my cup right now, as I've taken a little bit of time, I guess, stepping away from my career a little bit after being at the Bullets, and that being such a big part of my life. Being able to come home and spending that time kind of finding who I am again is really cool. So I guess I'm trying to find out who I am, but yeah, in the meantime, just enjoying all the little parts in between.
So you certainly got a very stacked shelf behind you there. So
yes, I'm very lucky coming home. We have a whole library of books here, so I can't really get through them all. There's no way. But I do like the cookbooks as well on the side. I love cooking, so I do spend a lot of time, or I try to spend a lot of time when I'm at training. I'm lucky to get some meals cooked for me, so thank you to the parents. But I do love cooking, so that's one thing that, I do try and get through a few of those cookbooks as well.
We've had some guests in the past who also have similar interests of reading and cooking. And we had Bianca Duffelmeyer on, I think, last season, who mentioned she's learning how to cook. And she mentioned how she's learning to make beef or broccoli or something. And it just became a running joke with her teammates. And I think some of her teammates were calling her out for it on Instagram and stuff too.
Poor thing. Well, at least she's trying and learning.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Have you got any books you can recommend to our listeners?
I've read some very good ones. The Tattooist of Auschwitz is one of my favorites. It's a little bit heavier, but it's an unbelievable read. So that's probably the recommendation I'll go with today.
That's a good one because there's also a TV series. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there is the TV. To be fair, I actually haven't watched the TV series and I do need to get onto that.
Have you read that book, Lockie?
I haven't actually, but I like the idea that someone's happy to just recommend something so heavy and say, just go and read it.
Yeah.
People always go with like the soft touch with the recommendations.
Yeah. To be fair, I do like a rom-com. When I'm watching something, I don't want to be frightened or scared, so I do like a rom-com. But books, I can go a little bit heavier.
I was going to ask you too, because I knew that you worked for the Bullets, but forgot that you actually played and probably lived on the Gold Coast, right? And I was going to ask you how you survived living in Brisbane without a beach, but the way to survive it sounds like, is to live somewhere else.
Yeah, so I was living on the Gold Coast. I was very lucky. I was living in Burleigh with a couple of friends and I would commute. Now, the commute was not always fun, but to wake up and be in the Gold Coast on the weekends was just the best.
Yeah, it's delightful. I'm struggling up here with no beach still. It's not how my brain is wired.
Can't relate, sorry.
Because you did the opposite. You grew up without beach and now you've been living in a beach town for a while, so now it's part of your brain too, Lockie.
That's right. Yeah. I grew up in Windsor and Mudgee and now live in Cronulla, so happy days.
Yeah. Happy days.
Yeah.
Although I gotta say, it has not been beach weather for a good long while.
No, but hopefully now it's getting a lot better.
And Lockie, I remember you wanted to ask Susie if she still dabbles in one of her old hobbies.
Yes. Because your college profile at HPU is far more in-depth than what we get from most players. And it says that when you were studying business that you'd like to dabble in the stock market. Was that just something to keep you going through college?
Dabble was very loose. I was taking a lot of accounting classes and I was taking, international business classes and things like that. And I was so interested in it, but I really should have stuck my teeth in at that point when I was younger, because it really fell off and I didn't do much dabbling from that point forward. So I probably should have stuck at it, but here I am.
It's never too late.
Well, that's what they say. Very true.
But it also said something that actually resonated with me more, because you got asked what you wanted to be in 10 years and you said happy and successful.
Oh, that's very... I haven't looked at that profile for a very long time, but 20-year-old Susie really, or I don't know how old I was, probably 20-year-old Susie was very kind to herself. So I'm very glad to hear that. And I mean, that's the aim in life, really, isn't it? Is to kind of be happy and, find success in things. So it's not always easy to do, but I guess finding the little joys in life I guess in hindsight, now I'm a little bit older, I can see that. And I think if you relate it back to basketball, I think just being out on the court and being able to, get up and down and be fit and enjoy each other's successes on court is a really cool thing. And I'm lucky enough to play with some amazing players. And so there's quite a bit of success there and there's a lot to enjoy. So really lucky to be a part of it still.
Yeah, and hold on to that fitness, Susie, because once you stop, it's hard to get it back.
That's the plan at this point.
And just as we were preparing for to interview you today, I have just been recently talking to our friend Mal on his podcast, Ball Don't Lie. He's starting a podcast series where he's just talking to commentators about their experience. So I got to recall how I started, and I started at the Waratah finals, and one of the first people I commentated with ever was yourself.
Yes, and to be honest, my mum brings that up quite regularly. She's like, you guys just spoke so well together, and I agree. It was a really fun game to commentate, and I think we're actually, Shyla Hill was on the court at the time for one of those games. So to bring it back, played against her this weekend, and comes kind of full circle. But yeah, that was kind of one of my first real world media experiences as well. So I guess it's pretty crazy how it all works.
Yeah. And so that was, the first time. And I remember that game. I thought we did really well that game as well, and admittedly knew nothing about commentating back then as much as I do now. But could you see yourself returning to commentating or something similar?
Yeah, I think I would like to. I mean, last year I had the season off playing. I was just working and trying to stay fit, but also I was doing some of the Gold Coast games commentating, and I really enjoyed it. So I think maybe one day get back into it. It's fun talking about it, and I guess when you've been around the game for so long, as you both have been, it does get easier and easier. And I think the first time you do it, you're so nervous because what if you say the wrong thing and you may not have to talk for 2 hours and not stuff up anything? But I mean, you can, and you just make up for it the next time the ball comes down the court, and no one's going to hold you to that. So I think, it's a really fun thing to do, and maybe I'll be back there soon.
That's the thing. No, the coach can't sub you out for making a mistake when you're commentating. You just got to play through
it. Exactly right. So I mean, it's fantastic.
We've got a third headset. If you're ever at Comets or Sutherland, spot's open for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Lockie, do you get to commentate a Newcastle game at Sutherland or Comets this year where you could perhaps pinch Susie?
Susie had to run off quite quickly after the Newcastle game, unfortunately.
That's fair.
I called Sutherland saw Susie, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, we had a home game the next day, quite early.
Yeah.
So we were racing out of, usually I'll stay and watch the men's games, but we were racing out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, because it looks like you have had your draw's been really interesting where you've had double headers, but you've had a lot of one home and one away over those double header weekends.
Yeah, they have. There's been quite a few that have been split ones. So, you just kind of make sure you're recovering well and getting on the road. But then from Newcastle, you're kind of used to the travel. The first year I was playing with Flames, I was kind of commuting from Newcastle, kind of driving down every other day. So, yeah, we're pretty used to being on the road. So it's all right.
Metro players wouldn't get it.
No. No.
And Albury Bandit fans are going to listen to this and go, Newcastle, that's nothing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I didn't realize you were commentating some games for the Rollers last season. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you got back into it and that you're still kind of keen to perhaps dabble, but maybe double more in commentary than you were with the stock market, perhaps.
Yes.
So hopefully people will listen to this, and also it's planted the seed for something similar that we can get you involved in when you're ready.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's I think the biggest thing is I guess throughout my career, I haven't really known exactly what I was going to do next at certain points, but kind of when offered things or asked things, I've kind of jumped at the chance, and that's put me in some really great positions throughout.
Awesome. Oh, that sounds really, really good. Don't need to always cement a 5-year plan. That stuff's overrated, I reckon.
I think so.
But Lockie, do you have any other questions for Susie before we finish up?
No, I think we covered just about everything. I made sure to put away my pull-up banner before the interview, which I still have.
Amazing.
Don't need you looking at yourself all evening.
No.
Pretty cool piece of memorabilia to have, though, I still say, Lockie. Like, that's one of those things that really take you back to a certain time and place, and in the Flames history, and in the history of like Sydney Uni basketball for women too, because the Sparks were like, I mean, they were a spark. They were there for a short period of time and they burned brightly, and then it ended. So Sparks is probably a very good name for that, but it was such an important time for that whole program. And now I guess the next thing is the future Flames that Renee has started with Hoops Capital.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really cool pathway, and so great to see so many young New South Wales basketballers continue to be amazing players and continue on.
But Susie, you've been such a great guest, probably one of my favorites so far of season 3 on eScott Game. Thank you so much for being with us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And now that you've been a guest on the podcast and you learnt what our bookend questions are for all of our guests, it's time for you to learn the most important phrase. And what can you tell Susie what that is, Lockie?
Don't sleep on the East.